Hey, thanks everyone for joining this live Q&A. Ask us anything about ranch co-investing with Ranch Investor. We have a few minutes before we get started, so I'm going to wait until 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and then we'll get at it. We have a few questions from Reddit and LinkedIn, as well as any questions you submit here while we're live. I'm Colter DeVries, by the way. Live in Billings, Montana. I was a fifth generation rancher. I wouldn't consider myself a rancher anymore since my primary occupation is husband, father, broker, and now general partner. We're back. Looks like we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and a couple other channels. One more minute before we get started addressing these questions from previously submitted, as well as hopefully that spurs some thoughts and discussions for those joining in live who have more questions about ranch co-investing. Okay, 10 o'clock Mountain Time. We are live on a few platforms. I am Colter DeVries, owner of Ranch Investor, previously Brokerage Advisory, and now we are transitioning to ranch co-investing. We are in the process of launching a direct participation program, a DPP. And what that is, DPPs are very common with real estate. It's a syndicate, as well as energy plays. So oil wells. A lot of people jump into DPPs on oil wells because of the tax benefits. One thing we are also looking to create with a syndicated ranch investment is tax benefits. So that's something we all know, that ranches are very difficult to cash flow with more than 20% leverage. So there are reasons to invest in a ranch if tax shelter is an objective. So if you have taxable income from other sources of real estate investment, that can be reduced, that taxable income, with a K-1 pass-through loss, the loss being driven by depreciation. And on a ranch, we can get depreciation from fences, culverts, roads, ditches, shares in canals and ditches. Of course, your barns, homes, corrals. As you get into operating a ranch, then you have more depreciable assets, particularly your cattle. But if you've been listening into the podcast, you'll know that you want to watch out for your cow depreciation. We're not going to talk too much about ranch operations today. We're talking about a passive investment, a DPP, syndication. What we're going to accomplish is the launch of a $10 million ranch acquisition. Because our regulatory filing and registration, we're not securities brokers, dealers. We're not licensed with the SEC to actively go out and just market any securities we want. We have to market our own. And so that's a specific regulatory exemption that we are using, substantiated by a PPM, a private placement memorandum. The people we can market to are accredited investors. And what is an accredited investor? There's a few different thresholds to meet. I would say if you don't know what an accredited investor is, you're probably not one. So we are only allowed to market our own securities to accredited investors for this $10 million ranch. And because of that, we have a minimum. We're not going to tell you how much to invest. We're going to tell you what the minimum is. From there, you can invest as much as you'd like. So the minimum is $100,000. And the reason being, we are targeting only accredited investors at $100,000. That doesn't sound very inclusive. That doesn't sound democratized. We have, as you might understand, we have significant startup expenses and management back office expenses to do this. As we reach economies of scale, as technology improves, process transactions become, I don't want to say cheaper, but technologically enabled, will reduce the transaction costs. And as we spread those overheads over more ranches, we will be able to bring that minimum investment down from $100,000. And we will be able to include your average retail investor in the future. Today, we're not there. That's not the case. What we're going to have, if we have a maximum of 100 investors at $100,000 each, one of the questions we often get here is, how do you manage that many people who want to recreate on the ranch? So let's get into recreation. This is not a timeshare. You're not, with a DPP, you're not buying rights to time. In a timeshare, you have rights to time. This is also not a co-ownership, kind of like a communal. You can't just show up with your cattle and free graze on top of everyone else. I am the general partner. I have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize and optimize returns for the limited partners. The 100 accredited investors are the limited partners. They are my partners. I am responsible for the safekeeping of their investment. And I also have promises to uphold. So one of mine is in the partnership agreement, in the registration, the partners are protected by a hurdle rate. So we are guaranteeing a 5% IRR, annualized return. And if that is not met, that comes out of my 2% that I'm putting into this. So as the GP, as your partner, I'm putting 2% in to the $10 million ranch acquisition. That's my hurt money. At the end of 7 years, this is a fund limited time. At the end of 7 years, if that 5% hurdle rate is not met, then that comes out of my 2%. That's my hurt money. That's my guarantee to the investors. So we took a little tangent there, got into some fees. The waterfall being anything over and above 5% IRR for you, the limited partners. Anything over and above that, we split. It's a performance. You want to incentivize your general partner for best practices. You want to economically and financially incentivize your fiduciary, your agent, to do the best job for you. So we split owner carried interest 80-20, 80 to the LPs, 20% to the general partner. Moving this back around to, I think what everyone is interested in is, okay, I understand that there's a low annual cash yield from owning a ranch. It usually covers management, insurance, property taxes. It covers the basics, and that is dependent on location. Of course, as you get into more production quality ranches, such as the Northern Great Plains, you do have the opportunity for cash distributions. It's not just a net zero annually. As you move west, and particularly areas that are affected by great elk habitat, very scenic areas that have more recreational amenities, attributes, closer to novel towns like Bozeman, Billings, Missoula, then of course your cap rate is going to be less because there's just more demand for those types of ranches. People are going to be paying more for those types of ranches. So how do you manage 100 limited partners who have invested in this DPP with the expectation, not a right, but the expectation that they are going to have exclusive recreational benefits, exclusive to just them, the LPs, the owners of this ranch? How do you manage that? And how do you manage it equitably or fairly, whatever qualitative value driven word you want to put on it? We do that by tranches. So there are 4 tranches of investment, and we don't have minimums for each tranche. We don't have a required number of participants in each tranche. The way it's broke out is if there are 100 LPs owning this $10 million ranch, that theoretically, we'll just say that that's $100,000 each. It's a bid process. So there wouldn't be a tranche in that situation, but that's not going to be the case. Simply put, those who contribute more to the ranch, those who have more skin in the game, more at stake, they should be rewarded for that investment. So they're going to have a right of first offer, a ROFO, on the weeks that they want to exclusively use the ranch. And we all kind of know and assume that you might have the majority of people who are competing for about 45 days in the fall for elk hunting. Of course, there's bird hunting around that. There's horseback riding in the summertime, fly fishing in the summertime. So we don't want to subjectively put our position on where investors should be reserving their days. Everyone's going to invest for a different reason. It might be 4th of July, an annual family outing for the 4th of July weekend. It might be annual family Memorial Day trip. Whatever it is, we're not going to take a management, me, ranch investor, we're not going to take a position on which week has the most value and who has the most say for that week. It's going to be up to the LPs. They are creating a small market, a very limited market, 100 participants at most, and they get to put in their offer. If they want Christmas, the week of Christmas, they get to put in their bid for the week of Christmas. And so what we have, we can present this at another time when you attend the actual ranch presentation. We will walk through how graduated bidding, our process works. It's a ROFO for those who have more at stake. All right. With that introduction, let's get into some questions here. We have a few from Reddit, have a few from LinkedIn. Give me a second to pull these up. I know a ranch that is structured as a partnership with around 30 shares. None of the investors' partners want the ranch to be productive. No amount of production would make a return that would make any difference to them. I think the shares are selling for north of 1 million now. What they want is stuff to be perfectly maintained and ready and waiting when they come to visit. That means the annual dues are quite high, the opposite of an investment. It costs to be an owner. I'm told some of the shareholders are quite demanding. Are you looking to fund a productive operation, or are you looking for a way to be part owner of a $10 million property? Do you currently own the ranch? Are you trying to get some equity out and still run a livestock operation? What's your goal? That is from Reddit. So let's start with the first question. Are you looking to fund a productive operation? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is an investment first. So having those partnership agreements, the requirements that I am guaranteeing you LPs a 5% annualized rate of return, it has to be profitable the whole way through. And IRR is calculated not just on asset appreciation, as most accredited investors know. It is calculated with distributions, time value, discounted cash flows. So yes, to answer that first question, it's an investment first. You get to play on it second, and you get to play on it. It is not a right that you have. All right, next question he had was, are you looking for a way to be part owner of a $10 million property? I'm not looking for a way. I would rather not put in my 2% at guaranteed 5% IRR. I'm at a point in my life, in my career, where I can invest I should and I ought to invest in other ways. So I don't really want to be uh, a partner. I would prefer not to have equity in this, but I have to. I have to put in 2% so that I have skin in the game. Um, I am a fiduciary of the LPs. I'm an agent of their best interest when it comes to operating and managing this ranch. And nothing speaks louder than money. So I don't want to be the partner, but I have to. It's part of the agreement. You want your leader to have skin in the game. You want a rope to be pretty close, pretty tight around their neck in case they screw up. Do you currently own the ranch? That's a no. We have several ranches identified. The due diligence process is extensive, and we can share that due diligence process. We have it being built into our website, so you have a chance to review the due diligence process that we go through for each ranch. As you know, ranches are a negotiated purchase. They are subjectively valued. There is a market, so you don't see huge swings, variability around opinion of value, but it is negotiated purchase, subjective, much like art. It's less like commercial real estate and farmland, bare vacant farmland, which who wants that anyway? That's not fun. You can't go hunt your commercial property, your strip mall in Phoenix, Arizona, and you can't go ride a horse on your bare dirt farm ground in the Delta region. So now that I went on that tangent and lost my train of thought, do I currently own the ranch? No, we have several identified that we will make offers on contingent upon fundraising, contingent upon many things. First, the due diligence. We will go through our own, and since I transact roughly $12 million worth of ranches a year, valuing a ranch, due diligence, that's kind of been my job. That's kind of what I got paid for the last 7 years of my life, and how I built my reputation. So, and I mean, I was a banker with Rabo and Wells Fargo before I was a broker. So it's kind of what I do, assessing ranches. And before that, I was a rancher. So plenty of experience there. We will put one under contract. It will be loaded with contingencies, but we don't have one currently. We're not, which kind of goes with one of his other questions. Are you trying to take equity out? No. That is something we can offer owners, families, dissolutions, ranch owners with equity. We can offer that in the future. We're not going to do that today. That was a good question. And then what's your goal? So my goal here is it's deep. I have been around the changing landscape of land ownership in the West for, well, let's say 20 years now, since I was 15 in the early 2000s, 15 years old. In the early 2000s, we know that there's a huge wave, a huge change of ownership, the changing face of the landscape, changing community, changing culture of the West. This all plays into my goal. This is what shapes me. This is what has shaped my entire career. I mean, this is part of why I went to college to study finance and economics as an 18-year-old, first generation college educated homesteader. all of this plays a part. I was a teenager when billionaires started coming in and buying ranches, locking gates, and not being a member of the community. And that affects me personally because I remember the West as it was from my childhood. I remember when we would have community brandings. I mean, May, right now, May 17th, we would have at least 2 or 3 brandings this week where neighbors help. They go on a circuit essentially and they help for 4 weeks. They help other neighbors brand. That's all dead and gone, and it's not coming back. So I was part of that, and it has affected me deeply. My goal here, because of this, what's becoming fiefdom and serfdom, my goal is to head that off, to disrupt it. We need to, using the free market system and using capitalism, we need to, got a comment coming in from one of the platforms. Using the free market system and using capitalism, we need to find a way to curb this changing cultural landscape. And it's not just an impact on culture and community, it's an impact on ecology and wildlife as well. When you have the billionaire class and churches and nonprofits, conservation groups coming in, they have different priorities and they have different goals than what has traditionally worked for and suited the local ecology. They want to have an influence over that, and we can do that as well. We can do that with 100 LPs. Johnny, thanks for chiming in. Minimum investment is $100,000 for accredited investors. So getting back into the gentleman's question from Reddit, what is my goal here? My goal is to take that power back from the aristocracy. We are going to make ranches not just for the elite and not just for the ultra wealthy billionaire class. Ranches are going to once again be a keyhole position of a local community, of the culture. The West is dying, and we need to figure out a way to, as a society, ranch investors got the way figured out. We have our own way, but as a society, we need to figure out how much we value rural communities and generational knowledge, and we need to figure out a way that we incentivize the sustainability of that. We need to regenerate. Regenerate is a buzzword today. I think most good operators have been regenerative for many years. But what I'm getting at is my goal is to be responsible. I am taking full responsibility for the shift that has happened with billionaires and churches and conservation groups coming in, driving up the value of ranches and forcing everyone out. No more locked gates. That's what this is about. This is inclusive. This is a capitalistic means to protect the legacy of the West. So thanks for that question from Integrating Life on Reddit. I won't, if people want to remain anonymous with their questions, I won't divulge too much information on who you are. Can I invest via an LLC? Yes. Yeah. Can I invest via my retirement fund? Yes, of course. This is not novel in the sense that technology has given the crowd, the audience, the masses means for investing in alternative assets. And many people do that via their retirement, their IRA or an LLC. We have the back office set up. When we get the ranch identified and we are promoting it, we have a tutorial how to use our investor platform. What other questions do we have here? I had to print some off because I'm old school. Fees, good questions. What are your fees? There is an upfront 5% management fee. Me as the GP managing the asset, managing the fund, will hire a asset manager, which we have one identified. You've probably heard from several candidates on my podcast in the past. But we've got 25% gross revenue share on livestock agricultural income, 45% revenue share on recreational income exclusive to direct participation partners, 15% revenue share on conservation and government programs, 1% disposition fee at sale, 6% brokerage is separate, 2% loan origination fee, though leverage is capped at 15% LTV and only needed for extraordinary events, as cash flow will ideally be reinvested back into the ranch for better features, for improvements. In my experience, selling over $10 million of ranches a year, no ranch is perfect. So anytime you step into a new ranch, you are a new owner, new operation, new vision, you're going to have to reinvest. You're going to have to make improvements. And that's why we are also budgeting 5% upfront for improvements. And that comes with, one, you have to do it. I have to do it economically because I'm incentivized to, and I have skin in the game, equity on the line if I don't do it economically. But two, you have to make improvements that have meaningful, long-term, positive ROI. And it's hard to determine exactly what those are. It's not hard to determine what they are not. So large lodges with very custom features, those are not good improvements. We have seen there's been an exception. The 2020 boom was an exception, but I'm not a believer that that's going to last. What else do we have here? The LPs will be receiving a 5% IRR hurdle rate on a 7-year duration. Will be receiving 80% profits above hurdle rate. What is charged to the fund? Property taxes, interest, 1% acquisition fee, closing costs, filing and registration fees, appraisal at purchase and sale only. So there's no reason to update your ranch with an appraisal every year. When the appraisal costs $5,000 and your cap rate is 1.5% on a $10 million ranch, and historically the growth rate is annualized at, we're going to say pretty Western ranches, 6 to 9%. If we're going to say production ranches in the Northern Great Plains, historically 3 to 6%. That being said, there's no reason to update the appraisal every year. That's a waste of money. An additional 5% management improvement budget. Yeah, we covered that. The state BLM, grazing fees, banking and accounting. All of these expenses charged to the fund will be charged to me. I will pay for them in the beginning and be reimbursed by the fund through cash flows. Now, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just put that expense onto the LPs and the investment? because I'm aligned. My interests are aligned with the LPs. Me as the GP, I'm making confident claims and statements that I'm going to return cash. I'm going to return equity. I'm going to return a positive IRR. So if I have that confidence and we've modeled that in using historical data on all these ranches I've been working with, why wouldn't I have the confidence to just pay the fees out of my pocket initially and know that I can create an income to be reimbursed? That's an alignment of interest, and that's what you don't get with a lot of fund managers. Okay, let's look at a few more questions here. 10:30, we've been at it for a half an hour. I say let's wrap it up in 15 minutes, make this 45 minutes long. So, final 15 minutes. What are the benefits and drawbacks of co-investing compared to owning it alone? Ooh, tough question. I can't tell you what the benefit is for you individually, personally, because I don't know you. I don't know what your subjective values are. The biggest, easiest one to identify for me is most people who want to own a large Western ranch don't have the means to, for one. That's pretty obvious. Even your accredited investors are not going to have the means to buy a $10 million ranch that grosses 1.5% annually. It might be too much portfolio exposure for them. So that's the biggest, easiest one is co-investing. DPP syndication allows you to get into a bigger pool, especially when I'm offering these features and benefits of exclusive recreational access. Why buy the cow when you're getting the milk for free? I mean, that's most people who are absentee owners. They're not getting 365-day use out of their ranch in Montana. So why pay for 365-day use? That's the big one for me. Then of course it's absentee owners traditionally only want to use the ranch during highly desirable times. And as I mentioned, Memorial Day, 4th of July, hunting season, meditation, whatever it might be, a break from the grind, from your attorney job in Dallas. You're not going to be fully utilizing it. And that's one reason why you'd want to have a general partner and a manager ensuring that all amenities and property rights are concessionized or capitalized or monetized. Why have a vacancy rate? If this is comparable to commercial real estate, ranches have a huge vacancy rate. And so if you're an absentee owner, and that vacancy rate it's many different things. It's government programs, it's multi-species livestock grazing, it's recreation tourism, it's mineral rights, it is fossil rights. I mean, there's many, many different aspects of a ranch to optimize. It doesn't pay that well all the time, relatively speaking, especially commercial real estate. So why would someone invest all that time for a $40,000 government program, CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program, pays $40,000, maxes out annually. Most absentee owners are not going to do that. It's just not worth their time. Which gets into that gentleman's question from Reddit. He was talking about that other ranch pretty much being a high fee write-off. That's not us, because I am investing in this unwillingly. I can do more with my money elsewhere. At 35, I don't need to be investing in ranches. This isn't a write-off because I am incentivized to create higher returns for my own interest in it. All right, chime in. A couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Johnny, for your question. Oh, what is the maximum investment? Geez, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that one. Maximum investment would be about 80% of total capital being raised. And the reason why we cap it at 80% is I don't want to manage this for just one person. I'm not here to just be a fund manager to help the billionaires with serfdom and fiefdom, as I mentioned earlier, what my goals are. So we're going to make this available for as many people as we can. So there is a maximum. It's going to be 80% of total investment. Thanks for that question. With recreational use for LPs, are there maintenance fees? No, the maintenance fee is the bid. So LinkedIn user, if you're the LP and say that you're in tranche 4, which is the highest tranche, that you're in the 90th percentile of people who invested in this, which means you'd be competing with maybe 10 other people for the weeks that you want. So if you're in the 90th percentile of the 100 LPs, your bid for the weeks you want is subjective to you. And say that it's $5,000 for the week of October 31st, archery or rifle bull elk season. That is the maintenance fee. And property management, your general cleaning the sheets, caretaking comes out of that. That's what I am organizing and managing. But say you win that week for $5,000, that is the maintenance fee. Good question. Otherwise, well, thank you all for joining in. Be sure to, if something triggers you in a good way, something piques your interest or you got an itch, reach out, hit me up on whatever social media platform we're on, or just directly contact me via email and phone. Email is better. My phone rings too much and it's hard to manage the calls, but we can get in touch directly. I would like to hear from you. Privately, we can have a conversation. So feel free. I am accessible with a little patience. Keep in mind that it might take a couple days to organize a conversation, a call, but do reach out with more questions and comments. Thank you all for joining in. I hope you obtained a lot of value from this Q&A, and I hope we can make it work for you. Coulter, Ranch Investor, this is our inaugural Q&A, so please come back to another when we decide to have another. Thank you.